Yeah. And I think that when you're hit with that doubt, it becomes a moment of curiosity about what is this mask that I'm wearing that is making me doubt myself, that's making me feel inauthentic? What is this belief that I'm holding on to about my relationship with this world, that I'm too much, I'm not enough? And so it allows us to then become curious about the parts of ourselves that are really, really scared. And then we're given that choice to step into the fear consciously, knowing that we are going to feel afraid, but trusting at the same time, holding that paradox that we will be able to get ourselves through it.
You're listening to The Creative Impostor, episode number 34. Welcome to The Creative Impostor. I'm Andrea Klunder, and you are a lucky soul because today I'm sharing an intimate and inspiring conversation with intuitive counselor and self-discovery coach Charlotte Elea about tarot cards, dreams, and what to do when you know you actually are being an imposter and need to shift your course to get back on track with who you authentically are and what you are here to do in this world. If you've been listening or following the Creative Impostor Facebook group or coming to my yoga and meditation classes at Satnam Yoga in Chicago, you know that I recently started using tarot and oracle cards this year, 2017, to add a new level of self-inquiry and insight to my existing meditation practice and intuitive toolkit. Now, even if you don't believe in tarot cards or mystical practices, you are still going to want to hear what Charlotte has to say. She is so wise and compassionate and honest in this interview. It was truly a treat to spend this time together and now to pass that gift along to you. After you listen to the episode, I'm pretty sure you're going to want more from Charlotte, so I want to let you know that through June 7th, you can get an exclusive opportunity to work with her. She and I came up with the perfect package for the Creative Impostor community. I will link to it in the show notes at thecreativeimpostor.com/034, or you can go directly to it at thecreativeimpostor.com/daily tarot. And here you will find her self-guided daily tarot course, your very own deck that she will send to you in the mail. Who doesn't love getting gifts in the mail? And a 30-minute private intuitive session with Charlotte. All of this is designed to help you discover the power of your own intuition to spark the creative process, gain clarity over what's blocking you, and keep you growing and evolving. And as a super bonus, when you sign up with Charlotte, you'll also be supporting the Creative Impostor directly. So thank you in advance. I also need to tell you that I originally met Charlotte through the Singularity Circle, which is this awesome creative leadership mastermind developed by Isabel Rizzo, whom you met in episode 26. And if you haven't listened to Isabel's interview, do it right after this one. Isabel is a master at helping you clear the clutter of your creative brain to get to the heart of how you can use your story to build your personal brand in alignment with your values and be of service in your community. Right now, Isabel has a limited number of spots available in the Singularity Circle, so check it out at thecreativimpostor.com/SC for Singularity Circle to see if it's right for you. And if you join, tell her I sent you, and you will also be supporting this show by working with Isabel. So again, thanks. And a third way you can support the Creative Impostor is by becoming an official patron for the show, for which I will shower you with many lovely gifts, like exclusive access to an unlisted bonus podcast for your ears only, featuring my favorite tools and techniques to nurture and sustain your creative expression, stickers, t-shirts, a creative care package in the mail once again, and of course, my undying gratitude. And you can find all of this on Patreon. Patreon is like Kickstarter, but way more fun. That's at thecreativeimpostor.com/support. So thank you a third time in advance. Okay, are you ready? Take a deep breath in and exhale. And here's my conversation with Charlotte Elea. I'm so excited to talk to you today because you have been the provider of my new favorite pastime and distraction starting in January of this year, which is tarot cards.
Yay, that makes me so happy to hear. The more people I can convert to tarot, the better, especially people who I also think are awesome. So, yay.
Yay. Being that I'm in a lot of healing circles, I've been around tarot quite a bit, but it never actually struck me as something that I wanted to learn how to do. So having met you in the Singularity Circle and then seeing the way that you use tarot cards and oracle cards, suddenly something clicked in my mind that tarot card readings don't necessarily need to be this totally mystical fortune tellery palm reading-y thing, that they actually can be a really practical tool for doing something that I try to do on a daily basis, which is just simply connecting with my own intuition. And so you totally inspired me to get my first deck. And we're going to get into all of the different online challenges and videos and tools that you use. But enough of me rambling, because we're here to hear from you, not me.
Sure. Well, you touched on my own journey actually in your summary of how you got introduced to me, because I started my professional work in this field a couple years ago as a tarot reader. And then it started to become clear to me last year, 2016, that I wasn't a tarot reader. I was an intuitive counselor, because tarot is just a way in. And I found in the workshops that I held that it is so much more powerful when I'm able to pass these tools on to my clients, or at least be in relationship with them with the tools, rather than me just sitting down and giving a reading. So I call myself an intuitive counselor and self-discovery coach, because my passion is really helping my clients to make those deep discoveries about themselves in order to grow, in order to heal, in order to transform specific aspects of their lives and themselves. And we do this through being able to use intuitive tools, including tarot, including oracle. I also work deeply with dreams, and symbols and archetypes are my passion. I work a lot in guided meditation as well.
And so how did you get started in this work?
So two aspects of my life kind of came together a couple years ago. And so the first aspect would be tarot, right? I purchased my first tarot deck when I think I was 21 years old. It was the Mother Peace Tarot. I was in college. A friend recommended it to me. And I am so glad that that was the deck that I decided to purchase with the book that came along with it, because the authors advised everyone to look at the card first and allow the imagery to speak to you before you consult the book. And so that was the method that I was trained into with the tarot, even though I would consult the book. Everybody does. And so that was something that had always been part of my adult life, something that I used personally for myself. And then the other aspect was psychology. So when I was 24, I completed a master's degree in clinical psychology, and I began gaining my hours towards licensing in psychotherapy. And I spent 2 years practicing. I didn't get to the point where I got my license. And then I left the field for several reasons, which I'm sure we're going to go into in this interview, because it did have a lot to do with my imposter syndrome and my confidence level, as well as the fact that I didn't quite know how to utilize my strengths and gifts and knowledge, and the fact that I wasn't quite in the right field. So I knew that I loved personal growth. I knew that I loved psychology, but I didn't know how to put that together in a professional way that really nurtured my inner strengths. And so I segue into several years of my own personal therapy and a different career altogether in marketing, and getting to a point where I was so burnt out and really, really disconnected to my authentic self, and incredibly depressed in my work. And I got to a point where I totally quit it. And I just spent a year writing and exploring. And that's what brought me back to tarot and dreams, which I've also always been passionate about. And then all these little parts started coming together. And I realized that what I'm meant to do in the world is bringing all these little parts together, which didn't used to make sense being together.
Let's go straight back to what you alluded to, sort of cryptically. So I'm wondering what happened. You referenced that there were some imposter things happening there. And ultimately, do you think that quitting was the right thing for you?
I do. And it's interesting, Andrea, because I have wavered back and forth on that the last 10 years since I did quit the field of whether it was the right choice for me. It's sometimes feeling 100% certain that it was, and sometimes being like, maybe there's some way I can get back into it. So the imposter syndrome, part of it was every day during that time, I would feel as if I didn't belong and that I was a fake while I was practicing, even though all my supervisors believed in me 100%. And, I would apply for jobs and internships and I would get them above some of my other colleagues. And yet I struggled every day with my self-esteem, every day feeling so in over my head and overwhelmed, not really able to contain the experiences of my clients and contain the actual emotions because I am an empath and I hadn't really learned how to have the boundaries that I needed for that work. And so I would literally just be overwhelmed by the depression, the trauma, the paranoia of my clients, and I would actually be experiencing it. And so that was part of it. But also I was led by this strong kind of belief that this is what I should be doing. It's not what I love to do. And that came from a childhood role, a role that I'd always played my entire life of believing that I needed to take care of people in order to be a good person, in order for me to be taken care of in return. And so it wasn't actually coming from a genuine place. And so I was a kind of an imposter. So when I left the field, I remember declaring to myself, I don't want to help people anymore. I don't want to help people. And I was so relieved that for the first time in my life, I didn't have to help people.
Because what you're doing right now is definitely helping people. And one of the qualities that you have is having this very nurturing, caretaking presence. And so I'm curious, what's different now about your work as an intuitive counselor, which has a lot of the same benefit, but yet there's a different motivation, right?
Well, I think that I've learned that I can use my intuitive capabilities and empathic capabilities to help my clients really to understand and see what they need to see and to allow those insights to come to the surface. And as they are doing that, I can serve as a mirror for it while not holding their emotions for them. And so I actually put a lot of responsibility on my clients to hold themselves accountable, to hold themselves responsible, and to learn how to take care of themselves emotionally. And so that is an incredibly empowering gift that I'm giving them instead of me swooping in and being the one to kind of offer these, I like to call them truth bombs sometimes, and then jumping to this place of like, does that feel okay? Is that okay? Are you feeling okay? So it's like an offering and then a release. I put it out there and then I surrender and I kind of let go and I allow them to then process that and then come back to me when they are needing something else.
So what does a session look like with you, and how do you use the tarot cards and possibly oracle cards to help your clients connect with their intuition and be in touch with their emotions?
A session with me is kind of free form in that we do allow our intuitions to guide us. I find the most powerful sessions are when I do not come in with an agenda. And I do invite my clients to bring to the session any questions that they have, issues that they're struggling with, kind of messages and things that are starting to come through but not quite making sense. Often clients will come to me feeling like, I just feel like there's something I need to know that's just beneath the surface. And so we usually begin by grounding together. I usually then draw one card to kind of allow the session to point a certain direction. And it really depends on the session. Sometimes I'll draw several cards at once. Oftentimes I'll just draw one or two cards at a time, and then it's a conversation. My client can interject whenever they like and offer kind of information about the cards that I'm drawing. I will also ask questions along the way to clarify and to go deeper. And so as the session progresses, we do go deeper and deeper and deeper until what is really needing to kind of break through comes through. And my client is then left with a clear direction to go in.
And I'll just say a little bit about my experience learning what the different cards mean. And I am doing the approach that you had suggested, which is to do like a card of the day and to turn that card over and just by looking at the card itself to write down what my own impressions are of it, or what it makes me notice, or what it makes me feel, or what thoughts come to mind or words come to mind to describe that card. And then to look at the description in the booklet after I've done that, which I really like. So how do these different card meanings and archetypes and images play into how you direct the conversation with your client, whether you're doing an intuitive session or a reading?
Yeah, well, I do know the tarot very well. And so I am completely versed in all of the universal meanings of all the cards, as well as my own personal meanings of the cards. Eventually, you will want to kind of go to learn the more universal symbolisms of all the archetypes and numbers and the elements in order to complement your own personal reflections with those cards. I have a large database of both within me. And then also, though, I read each of the cards intuitively. And when it's an intuitive process, it's hard to kind of explain because I turn over a card and I really just allow the card to speak to me. And usually it does. And so I will begin speaking about the card or whatever is coming through to me. Often phrases will just kind of pop in my mind and I'll communicate that with my client. And I'll also hold the card up, though, for them to see, because that image is going to automatically speak to them often on a deep level. So, for example, in a session the other day with a client, the first card we pulled over had a snake on it. And I held it up and she said that the snake was a totem that had been coming through for her quite often recently. And she didn't know why the snake had been like kind of talking to her. So right away, we become aligned and know that like, okay, so a big focus of this reading is to understand what the snake totem means to you at this moment, what the message that it carries is.
That's awesome. And then have you always felt confident in your readings, or have you ever questioned the authenticity of, you said sometimes like phrases will come into your mind or images or words. I think intuition is such a tricky thing where like something pops into our mind and we're like, okay, is that a legit thing or is that just something popping into my mind randomly?
That's an interesting question because I've never really questioned the phrases, not at this point. I think that if I was to have jumped into this when I was new to tarot or intuitive work, I would have. But because I have done so much personal work with the tarot and my own intuitive tools and have learned to deeply trust all the messages I received, because the messages I received were 100% on point and led me to moments of incredible growth, incredible release, coming into my authentic self and letting go of so much that I needed to let go of. It's come from experience. And also, I know the truth of the paradox of trust. right? That trust is not something that comes automatically, that you're giving proof to something and so you trust it. Trust is always a leap of faith, and it gifts itself, because when you trust your intuition, when you trust yourself, then it gives back. Whatever you're trusting will then kind of solidify and feed you in return. Versus when you go into something doubting yourself or doubting the messages you receive, then your doubt is going to prove itself. And you'll end up being like, see? Because it's really all about the intention that you're putting into it.
And yet it feels very vulnerable to trust something for which you don't have solid evidence, right?
Yes. Yes. And yet that is life, right? Is being able to trust. And that is how we grow. That is how we embrace life, is trusting things that we do not have concrete evidence towards or 100% data in. Because we can wait and wait and wait. The part of us that doubts, there will never be enough evidence for this doubting part of ourselves to feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be enough evidence, because the doubting part of us wants to doubt. It gets into fear. It's looking towards the future. The trusting part of us wants to be in the present moment, wants to feel connected to that sense of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where kind of life opens up, right? Is in the present moment.
It's almost like if you go back to this idea of feeling like an imposter or feeling totally genuine and authentic, it almost becomes a choice in terms of, if you feel like a fake, if you feel like an imposter, if you feel disconnected from any kind of internal motivation for what you're doing, then that's who you are. That's what you're choosing to embody in that moment. Whereas if you make the choice to align yourself with what is genuine and true for you, then you inherently are authentic.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that when you're hit with that doubt, it becomes a moment of curiosity about, what is this mask that I'm wearing that is making me doubt myself, that's making me feel inauthentic? What is this belief that I'm holding on to about my relationship with this world, that I'm too much, I'm not enough? And so it allows us to then become curious about the parts of ourselves that are really, really scared. And then we're given that choice, like you said, to step into the fear consciously, knowing that we are going to feel afraid, but trusting at the same time, holding that paradox that we will be able to get ourselves through it.
Okay, so let me backtrack and say that the reason why you've been able to inspire me to investigate this divination tool or intuition tool, whatever you want to call it, is because of a series of videos that you've been doing and posting on YouTube and Facebook. And you do a monthly reading, right? Where you pull 3 tarot cards and usually an oracle card and a spirit animal card.
Right, exactly.
Those were the first videos that I saw of yours. And I'm like, oh, I really like this. But then you took it a step further, and this is probably your marketing expertise coming through from that brief stint in marketing, which is to create some challenges that give us specific tools or prompts to do on our own to pull cards and do some reflection. And the challenge that you're doing right now is all around vulnerability. Right. And at this moment in time, you just released step 2, which is in embracing your shadow side and what you've been avoiding looking at in yourself, right? And so it really gives opportunity for that self-reflection. And it gives you, instead of just saying, oh, take a moment of self-reflection, it gives you, it's like, okay, what am I reflecting on? It gives you a starting point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've been loving that, because when you have that opportunity and you have that starting point and you give your mind something like a puzzle to solve, really, it opens up so much potential for connecting what is true and what is authentic.
Yeah.
And I think the question that I'm kind of circling around is, how did you come up with the idea for this challenge and how you compare the use of the cards? Because you can do this challenge with tarot or with oracle cards. But how did you come up with the idea of pairing these particular prompts with this particular theme of vulnerability at this time in the world with the cards? Tell us a little bit about that evolution.
Sure. Well, one of the needs that I see out there with my clients who are getting their feet wet with tarot or oracle is that, as you mentioned the questions, that they don't know what to ask. Mm-hmm. And so I always advise clients to begin with the 1 card a day practice. But then taking it a step further, clients aren't sure what to ask. And they might stay kind of caught in the loop of the past, present, future reading or the yes, no readings, which, as you said, are so general and they don't really direct the mirror inward. I like to think of tarot cards as inward mirrors, right? They reflect back to us those aspects of ourselves that we are searching to see. And so that is part of my method, is really being able to help my clients ask the right questions, which will provoke the answers and messages that they need to hear. And the way that this Embracing Vulnerability Challenge came about was really, it was something that I needed. And that's where my intuition takes me. If this is something that I'm really needing and that I'm feeling out there in the world, I'm plugged into it. Because whatever I'm going through, everyone else is going through too. I'm not above and beyond at all. I still struggle with my demons and shadows and emotions. I'm a highly emotional person. I come clean about that in this challenge. And so whatever I'm needing, I know that my community needs it as well. And I was scared. I was incredibly scared to do this challenge because it meant that I needed to kind of bear myself as well. That this was, if I'm going to ask people to come forward and embrace their vulnerability and be real in the group and share very personal aspects of themselves, then I need to do that as well. But I know that when we're able to do that, and I know this from experience, from the groups I have led to the work that I have done with my clients, that when we're able to embrace our most vulnerable aspects and have them be mirrored by other people, it leads to so much healing. And so I know that this is the way forward. And I felt a responsibility to bring this forth, that we, in order to break through the shame that has been keeping us all back and hiding and small, that we need to embrace our vulnerability and find strength in it and find courage.
Do you think that when we have these feelings of self-doubt come up or this imposter voice come up, do you think that it has a useful purpose?
Yeah. And I was thinking about that before this interview, actually, that whenever we hit up against something that is making us feel small, that is pushing us back, whenever we come up against a wall, whenever we want to run away from something, it's always an opportunity, actually, to break through it. And it's really, really hard to do that alone. We need community support, we need tools. And so that is part of how I want to serve, is being able to help people through those moments. And whenever you embark on a journey to grow and change or heal in some way, whenever you're kind of taking responsibility of your life, saying, okay, I want to get to this next level, whatever that level is for yourself, you're going to encounter that resistance, those blocks, that fear. It's just part of the process. That's the growing process.
And so besides tarot and oracle cards, what tools do you personally use to keep yourself on track and moving forward in that genuine, connected direction?
I am an avid follower and listener of my dreams. I can't advocate dreams enough. I know that they're incredibly perplexing for a lot of people. And I do love helping my clients with their dreams because of that, because for some reason, the way my brain works, I have a gifted ability to be able to interpret these really, really strange dream symbols. And I also, because I do have this, I know the amazing potential that is there when you do listen to your dreams. So intuition is a way inward into your unconscious where so much information that you're not seeing lives, right? And so it's like if you're diving in beneath the water, whereas the surface level of the ocean is your conscious self, everything underneath would be your unconscious. So there's so much of ourselves that we don't actively see unless we're connected into our intuition, unless we have psychic abilities. But also, and this is what people often don't realize, dreams are a direct way in towards those messages. And so when you really take the time to listen to your dreams, to track them, to write them down, to elicit them, if letting yourself know, okay, I am going to be listening to my dreams, they'll start coming to you, and then using other tools to be able to help yourself interpret them, or just taking the time to sit with them and really kind of unravel them. So many messages begin to come through because our dreams will show us what we're being asked to push through and then what is pushing us back. So it will show us the interplay between our ego and our soul, highest self, however you like to call it, authentic self. And when you are working with tarot and oracle, dreams and cards, whatever type of deck that you have, work so well together. And I always, even though I work all the time with my dreams and I can understand them well, I still draw cards on the dreams that I have to really, really deepen into their meanings. And so a practice that I often recommend to people who are drawing cards for themselves is to take 2 or 3 or just even one of the symbols in your dream. So say you dream about a baby, breastfeeding a baby, pull a card and ask your deck, what did that baby mean? What did that baby represent? That's just an example.
And then what's the next step from there? Do you just kind of reflect on it, or do you journal around it?
I recommend the clients often to journal around it. Another thing that I did want to highlight during this interview, because I know that so many creatives listen to this podcast, is that creativity and intuition are essentially the same thing. To create something, whether it's a piece of writing, a painting, a drawing, a photograph, and have this representation external to you. Essentially, you're creating yourself. So using creative methods when you are exploring symbols, visions, dreams that are coming to you through your intuition is the perfect complement. So you draw a card on this dream symbol. Say, going back to that example, I dreamt of breastfeeding a baby. I draw the card of the Empress. And then I use the same methods that you were using, those same intuitive methods of exploring, okay, so what does this card mean to me? How did I feel in the dream? How is this experience in the dream meeting up with this card that I'm pulling? And allowing yourself to get into that flow of not filtering whatever is coming through. Again, that goes back to that issue of trust, right? When you're in the creative flow, doubt stops the creative flow, also stops the intuitive flow. And so just getting into that flow and to be able to have that experience become personal to you. And then eventually something is going to click. And it's that trusting process. It will click. And I know this because I have experienced it with myself and my clients hundreds and hundreds of times where they're in the flow and then click, the insight comes through. Oh, that's what that means. This is what I need to do. The message is so clear.
You just made me realize that since I've been doing your challenges, the vulnerability challenge that we're in the middle of right now, and also the challenge that you launched in the beginning of the year which was called the Sacred Intention Challenge, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Which was really deep and really intense and really good.
And it's still available, actually. It's an evergreen challenge.
Yes, it's so good. Of course, it'll be linked in the show notes for this episode for sure, so that people can find that because it is incredible. I just realized when you were talking about creativity and being in the flow and having that click and that aha moment, I hadn't put this together before, but I started out the new year feeling very foggy, feeling very unmotivated. And I wasn't sure if it was the fact that I got a horrible cold right on New Year's and was sick for like the first week of January, which is not the way anyone wants to start their new year.
Yeah.
Or whether it was the weight of political stuff that was wearing me down, or if it was just being in the Midwest in Chicago in winter, even though this winter has not been as bad as a Chicago winter can be. I just was feeling so foggy headed and lethargic, and I didn't really want to make any new podcast episodes, and I didn't really want to reach out and connect to anyone, and I didn't really know what my focus was or what I wanted to be doing moving forward. I was kind of just like maintaining the same activities in my work. Like I had no oomph for forward motion. And even if I did have the oomph, I wasn't sure what direction I would go in. And in the last 2 weeks, suddenly all of these ideas have been popping into my mind, and not like in the scattered way that they usually pop into my mind. Like usually I come up with so many different ideas that go in different directions that it becomes dispersive of my energy because I can't possibly follow up on all of those ideas at once. Yeah. You can relate.
Oh, yeah.
But there's been a very clear progression that's been emerging around the direction that I want to go with the podcast and with helping other people to launch their podcasts. And a lot of that clarity has come from doing these tarot challenges and really asking some questions about what is most important to me on a very deep level, to reconnect with that genuine thing that is motivating me.
Yeah.
Which is, we could now talk about that for another hour. But what I do want to ask is, what is exciting you most, or what are you most looking forward to in your work right now?
Interesting. I am fully immersed in this embracing vulnerability focus and challenge. And like we mentioned before, I'm doing one video per week for 7 weeks around this theme, and then challenging like community members to embrace their own vulnerability and share those experiences. And so that is exciting me quite a bit right now. It is a turn in my work because I have had mentors telling me for months that I'm a leader, but I need to let people get to know me, the real me. I need to lead through example. And so it is a leap that I'm making that is very exciting. Whatever is exciting is kind of scary, and it's not real and exciting if it's not a little bit scary, you know? And part of my work is following my intuitive nudges about my own work and not always knowing where it's going to lead me. Strange, like I don't know exactly where it's going to lead, but I'm just kind of allowing, again, trusting the process that it's going to lead somewhere really amazing. So that's one piece that I'm really excited about. The other piece is that at the end of January, I launched this 9-month program. It's like a deep dive with me, with a group of individuals who want to fully immerse themselves in their intuitive journey and are ready to take that journey with their intuition to get to know themselves and embrace themselves in a way that they never kind of have allowed themselves to before. And it's a 9-month journey. And 9 is incredibly meaningful and symbolic because 9s represent completion. That I have just begun. It's already so rewarding and so amazing to be able to work really deeply with this small group of women. And I am thinking about opening the doors to the program again. I'm not really sure. I'm following my intuition on that to see when it's ready to bring in another group. And the wonderful thing about this journey is that it is unplanned, that each client's 9-month journey is their own. And I am there to meet them on whatever that journey is. I will give them the tools that I have, and I will give them an intuitive guide every month to use. But that's almost like the backup,
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're using your intuition at the front. And then if you need these other things that I offer, you can kind of grab and take whatever you need for yourself in order to make that journey your own. It's free and wild being able to kind of release yourself from rules and structure of what this is going to mean. And that's why it's so fun, because I have taken myself on these several month-long processes of change and transformation. And so knowing that I'm ready to be able to lead others on that, and knowing from experience that you don't know where it's going to take you, and that's part of the joy of it, and that's what makes it so amazing, and that's what fills me with such a feeling of wonder, of like, oh, I wonder what they're going to find out, I wonder what we're going to find out, and become a giddy little kid.
That's amazing. And I mean, that is like how you know that you are so deeply connected to your purpose in this moment, is that feeling that you have, and that just the way that it comes out in your voice, like you can tell, like, yes, this is definitely the work that you are here to be doing, and is the complete opposite of being an imposter.
Yes. I've learned to clue into those moments where I am filled with that sense of wonder. And intuitive professionals like to call them kind of goosebump moments, because like during a session, when something really, really clicks or comes through strongly, I'll get goosebumps. And it's a shared experience. And so I know it's those moments when I get the goosebumps, or I'm filled with that sense of wonder, like, okay, this means like something like really, really important is coming through, or something really good is about to happen.
So 2 last questions for you.
Yeah.
One thing I like to ask everyone is, for somebody listening to this episode who is thinking, yes, I really want to connect with my intuition and learn how I can start to work with archetypes and symbols and unlocking that intuition so that I know how to move forward, because maybe that person is ready to take a risk, or is thinking about stepping out and doing something bold, or shifting something, maybe even in a small way, but in order to go in a new direction.
Yeah.
And they're right there at the edge of like, I'm almost ready to do this, but there's a slight hesitation or fear or uncertainty of where to step next. What advice or words of wisdom might you have for that person who's right there on the precipice of taking a new direction?
I think that to remove the intimidation for yourself and transform it into an opportunity to play, and so not to take it so seriously. And, embarking on a journey of getting in touch with your intuition can be something so simple as, maybe you do buy a deck, and maybe you do start drawing cards every once in a while. And those messages that are coming through, you don't have to kind of begin with the big questions. You can just play around with it in order to start building your trust, in order to be able to connect to the cards and see like, wow, the cards really do kind of mirror back what I'm experiencing and feeling or wishing for. And so you're not creating an agenda for yourself. You're embracing an opportunity to play and become curious about something. And whatever is coming through isn't going to be life defining at that moment. Our intuition takes us at the pace that we are ready to go on, and nothing will ever kind of come through that we're not ready to receive. And so if we're not ready to face the big fear, then your intuition won't lead you there yet. That is, again, that process of trust. It's that process of intention. Whatever intention you have for the process that you're doing is what you will be receiving. If you're just curious in that you just want to learn kind of more about tarot, go on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, follow other tarot readers. who use an intuitive method and read their posts and see if you connect with their posts. Join my Facebook group, and be one of those people that just watches and sees what other people are discovering and see my own posts. So I feel like it's about permission. It's really just like giving yourself permission to engage in something at the level that you are ready to be at, and then going into that with that intention.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or to say that we didn't quite get to?
I did want to mention briefly about the political situation in this country world. And I honestly actually don't even like calling it political because it's gone like way beyond politics now.
Mm-hmm.
And how it is doing this work in this moment of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because the imposter in me would say and has said, who are you to be doing this work at this moment when, what's needed is to be on the front lines, spending all day calling your senators, going to protests, meeting people there, and being at service for that political change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the imposter says of like, who are you to do this work that doesn't really matter right now? And that is such a myth and a lie, because what is drawing me to actually take this role of leadership and to really step into my authentic self and power is a reaction to what is happening in this world. Because I am seeing that the power that I am craving, the leadership that I am craving externally to me, I'm not going to find that in somebody else. I need to find that within myself. And I am seeing and feeling this and hearing this among women and men all over, that no one's going to change things for us. That has been made abundantly clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to step up and be that person that we have sought externally to us. And so it's really a moment of kind of declaring, that the imposter says, who am I to do this? And then my radical, embodied, authentic self says, who aren't you to do this?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do this. This is the time to actually really step into your power. And like I said earlier in our conversation, to break those shackles of shame and help other people break those shackles of shame, which make them feel small. It's not until collectively we break those shackles that we will be able to fully embody our power and to be able to shift things in this world. And so it's more important than ever.
Charlotte, you totally just gave me a goosebump moment.
Yes.
Yeah, that feels so true and so important to me, because I definitely have been having that same reaction of like, how can you be making podcasts about creativity and the imposter syndrome when you should be being an activist all of a sudden, even though you never were that before?
Yeah. Right. That is the mask, right? This mask of I should do this, instead of who I really am. Because who I really am isn't good enough, is never going to be good enough. And so I should be this other thing, which I think holds more value. Yeah.
And yet what you also said about becoming the leadership that you've been looking for externally.
Yeah.
That feels like I feel that in the center of my chest, like so strongly.
Yeah.
We hear this idea of leader, and there's so many connotations that go along with that. And it's not always easy to step up and embrace that role or that position or that responsibility ourselves. And yet that's exactly what we're all being called to do in our own individual ways.
Exactly. It's years and generations of shame, of becoming small. That is what these generations now are being called to remove. It's not an easy task. It's not a small task. is a radical, huge task that we're all being called to do. I know. It's like, whoa, can we really do it? Yeah, we can do it. We can.
We can.
You know, part of my work is helping us see that what we desire externally towards us, whatever we're drawn to, is what is wanting to be birthed within us. And so that is exactly what we are going through right now in this really radical political way, is, as you said, that leader that we're looking for, the change that we're looking for, that is going to be birthed within us.
The leader that we're looking for, the change that we're looking for, that is going to be birthed within us. Goosebumps, people. Did you feel them? I almost didn't ask Charlotte about politics in that interview. In fact, technically I didn't. I totally chickened out. See, after the election and inauguration, after the Women's March in DC, and after I tried to make an audio documentary about activism, creativity, and apathy, and then fell short of time, resources, money, and vision, I wanted to get other creative, intuitive people's take on what is happening and what we can be doing right now in our country, and particularly our role at this specific point in time as creatives. And I asked Charlotte if she'd be interested in speaking to that, if the conversation took us there organically, and we kind of left it open to see what would happen. I am so glad that when I generically asked if there was anything else she wanted to share, she stepped up into that intuitive leadership and spoke so eloquently. I almost wanted to cry when I re-listened to that part of the interview during editing. I cannot tell you what a journey this has been since I started connecting with Charlotte's approach to tarot and, more accurately, intuitive self-discovery in January. I've been having so much fun and taking my work in new, unexpected directions as a result. In fact, I think her vulnerability challenge in her Facebook group is part of what has been inspiring me to be so vulnerable with you in the last few solo episodes. So if you are inspired by what she shared, head over to thecreativeimpostor.com/034, where you will find links to Charlotte's Facebook community and the exclusive daily tarot offer for the Creative Impostor community. When you sign up, you will be supporting Charlotte's work, this show, and in return, you'll receive her online daily tarot course, your own deck, and a private intuitive session with Charlotte. The tarot tells a universal story of humanity throughout time and space. The lessons of the cards tap into the deep emotional, creative, and energetic forces within us. But what's most special about tarot is what you bring to it, and this program will help you gain focus. It'll help spark the creative process, provide clarity over your own creative blocks, and inspire you to keep growing and moving ahead. You will also find links to Isabel Rizzo's Singularity Circle, the program that connected Charlotte and me, my Patreon page where you can become a patron of the show and get some fun thank you gifts to support you in your ongoing creative journey, a free audiobook and 30-day trial with Audible.com, and the Creative Impostor Facebook group where Charlotte will be doing a live Q&A Wednesday, May 10th at 11 a.m. Central Time. All you need to do is join the Facebook group, click the Events tab, and RSVP so that you'll get a reminder. There's just one more thing I want to invite you to check out, which is my brand new Podcast Envy Launchpod program. If you have been dreaming of starting your own podcast and you're listening to The Creative Impostor, I am willing to bet that you have a story to tell, something that you are dying to put out into the world, and maybe you're a little nervous. You're feeling vulnerable and you aren't quite sure how to get started. Well, fortunately for you, I am a master at starting new things and have learned a thing or two to help you get beyond that little creative imposter voice in your head telling you you cannot do this. The launch pod begins May 15th, and over the course of 5 weeks, you will have everything you need to get started. Take a peek, and then if you're curious to learn more, book a 20-minute tea break with me, and we'll hop on the phone or video chat to see if your story is a good fit for the Launchpod program. Again, that's at podcastenvy.com. This episode was mixed by Edwin Ruiz of Mondo Machine. Theme music is by Jovia Armstrong. I thank you so much for sharing your time and energy by listening, and I wish you a week filled with opportunities for intuitive leadership.